Good evening and welcome to Inside City Hall for Friday, December 19th, 2025. I'm Bobby Kuza. A major shakeup in the race for governor today, with Congresswoman Elise Stefanik announcing she is ending her campaign and won't seek re-election in the House of Representatives this year. The move paves the way for Republican Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman, who is also a staunch ally of President Donald Trump, to challenge Governor Hochul's re-election bid next November. Blakeman spoke with reporters a short while ago. He is also set to speak in just a couple of minutes at a Republican fundraiser upstate, and we have got team coverage for you tonight. I am joined by our State House reporter, Bernadette Hogan, and our own Dan Rivoli. And Bernadette, I will start with you. This came as quite a surprise. I mean, Elise Stefanik, even though she was facing a primary, was clearly the front runner for the Republican nomination. We had no indication that she was having second thoughts about this.
Right, and the New York State Republican Party wanted to make that clear from the get-go. They wanted to stifle any possibility of a primary because it divides the party, it divides resources, it divides already Republicans that have a fewer number of registered voters compared to the Democrats in this state. And so the party was out early saying that they welcomed and backed Stefanik in this race as their candidate. Also, Bobby, it's very difficult for Republicans to raise money in New York. The party itself is a shadow of itself compared to prior years. That's why they were thrilled when Lee Zeldin ran in 2022, because he was able to fundraise on his own. And he also came within about 5 to 6 percentage points of Governor Kathy Hochul. And Bruce Blakeman, the Nassau County executive, is up in Oneida County, where he is addressing a fundraiser that was called to actually raise money for Elise Stefanik, but she canceled last minute.
Right, and he turned up. So let's take a listen in to Bruce Blakeman addressing the crowd there.
Miserable with the leadership of Kathy Hochul. People are fed up with the high taxes, the overregulation, the fact that she has spent $4.3 billion of our hard-earned taxpayer dollars on illegal migrants who've been here for 15 minutes. We don't know where they came from. They haven't been vetted. They show up on the door. They haven't earned a thing, and they get free lodging, free food, free transportation, a free cell phone, all paid for by you, the taxpayers. I think that's wrong. As governor, I will end that on day one. We will not be a sanctuary state. When we go around to places throughout the state of New York, and I've been to every part of the state many, many times, but recently I've talked to people. They talk about wanting to be safe in their communities. They want a governor that backs the blue, a governor that stands up for law enforcement, a governor that won't fight with corrections officers who protect our communities each and every day. And I will be that governor. They want a governor that will make people happy again, create jobs, economic prosperity, make sure that our kids will want to stay in New York State so we can see our grandchildren and not have to visit them in some other state. They want somebody who has an experience in creating jobs and economic development. In my county, our poverty rate is the lowest in New York State. It's 5%. The state poverty rate is 15%. We've got too many people in this state who are craving for a chance to provide for their families a better way of life. And that means putting more money in their pockets. So that's what I did as the chief executive of a county larger than 8 or 10 states. Some say it's larger than 8 states. Some say it's larger than 10 states. But we had a $4.3 billion budget that I managed over the last 4 years. And you know what? We got 7 bond upgrades, and I didn't raise taxes 1 penny in 4 years. As a matter of fact, my predecessor wanted a $150 million tax increase. And one of the first things I did when I got into office, I said, wait a second. I said, people can't afford that. So I canceled that. And yet we still got 7 bond upgrades from Wall Street because they like the way that we treat government like a business. I treat government like I'm spending your tax dollars, so they have to be spent wisely. We got to make sure that government is cost-benefit analysis when we spend money, not just spend it willy-nilly on programs that don't help anybody, programs that don't make our lives better. So these are some of the things that we did in Nassau County, and we can replicate it here in the state. Think about this. My county is a mirror image of New York State. Demographically, it's almost the same. And yet, with a county of 110,000 more registered Democrats, we won this year by 36,000 votes. It was a landslide. We were one of the few Republican victories in the whole country. And it's because of the principles that I just articulated to you. That we need to create jobs. We need economic development. We need to lower taxes. We've got to get government off the backs of small businesses. And we've got to continue to manage government efficiently, and we have to cut taxes. We are the most overtaxed state in all of America. And we get nothing in return but unhappiness and misery for our families. So again, as I travel around the state, I'm going to talk about my record because I've been a chief executive. I know how to get it done. I've been in the private sector and I've been in the public sector. And I know what works and what doesn't work. And clearly, what Kathy Hochul is doing in this state doesn't work. Everybody is miserable. They're unhappy. They want new leadership. They want somebody who will help their families. Because let's face it, we all had the same story growing up. Our parents and grandparents wanted a better life for us. They worked hard. They sacrificed for us. Now it's up to us to make sure that we provide a better life for our kids and our grandkids. So, I stand shoulder to shoulder with President Trump. I didn't run away from President Trump.
All right, that is Bruce Blakeman addressing a fundraiser in Oneida County. I'm going to bring our Bernadette Hogan back in. I mean, this almost is like a campaign kickoff speech for Bruce Blakeman, who as of early last week wasn't even in this race. And now he's the presumptive Republican nominee for governor all of a sudden.
Right, especially since the state party is now coalesced around him, quickly releasing a statement saying he's their candidate after releasing a previous statement saying, no, we're only endorsing Elise Stefanik. We do not want another Republican in the race. But just a couple points. I mean, he repeated a phrase actually that Governor Kathy Hochul uses, which is, I will deliver money into the pockets of New Yorkers. He talked a lot about affordability just now in this speech up in Oneida County and talking about making New York happy again and delivering for families. And he's using his experience as the boss, the executive, chief executive, or county executive rather, of Nassau County, and pointing to his record, which we can go over later when we have time to actually go to Nassau County and report on this. But I just want to read you a statement from Governor Kathy Hochul's campaign. Spokesman said in the statement, quote, Elise Stefanik has finally acknowledged reality. If you run against Governor Kathy Hochul, you are going to lose. The fact is 100% MAGA Bruce Blakeman traveled all the way to D.C. to celebrate Trump's expensive tariffs. He ran Long Island's safety net hospital into the ground by appointing corrupt cronies to run it. And she basically says, bring it on at the end. Now, the governor, again, is benefiting off of higher Democratic enrollment than Republicans. She's a prodigious fundraiser, and she's also banking on the fact that a Trump Republican White House will kind of crater any Republican insurgency. It might have been flipped had former President Joe Biden won, but that's a different story. But, the governor here, somebody was texting me earlier and they said, the governor is kind of lucking out that she will now be running against somebody from Long Island who needs to do some building of recognition across the state, who again is aligned with President Donald Trump, which, the governor can continue to have a decent relationship with the White House while also criticizing Republicans. But again, the Hochul team is happy to pile on this.
Well, and Dan Rivley, to bring you in, I mean, they're both in line with Donald Trump, right? Elise Stefanik and Bruce Blakeman, and that was going to be kind of the X factor in this primary, was who was Trump going to throw his support to, or was he going to kind of stay neutral on this?
Exactly. Trump likes a winner. He decides when he's going to throw his political support behind a candidate. The thing between these two Republicans is that he liked them both. He said they were both great. And so Elise Stefanik was such a big ally of his in the House. And so I want to read a little bit from Trump's Truth Social post after Stefanik makes this announcement. Trump calls her a fantastic person and congresswoman from New York State, calls her a tremendous talent regardless of what she does. She will have great success, and I am with her all the way. Trump, when asked about this race, would often say, well, we'll have to wait and see. You know, there's a Republican convention in the state that they want to go through, and then he can kind of gauge who's ahead, who looks like they're going to run away with it. Obviously, that's not going to happen now that Stefanik is out, but he likes Blakeman. He's called him, you know, straight out of central casting for what you would think a politician looks like. So they even cut a similar figure. You know, they're both tall, both a little older. Bruce Blakeman is 70 years old and cuts a broad figure, you know, in the suit. It kind of looks like Trump up there anyway. And even though Trump might be a little bit more populist than Blakeman, he obviously is an ally. You heard at the end of his remarks saying, you know, he stands shoulder to shoulder with Trump. I think the difference is Blakeman didn't have to take tough votes in Congress. He didn't have to defend Trump on controversial issues like bombing suspected drug boats off the coast of Venezuela. So he can kind of get Trump support for the Republicans without having to answer for some tough votes in Congress.
Yeah, and you know he is pro-abortion rights, but on some controversial issues, he has really taken the more conservative view, including trans sports. Right, he made a lot of news in Nassau County on that topic. He's also been pro-cooperation with ICE on immigration enforcement. So, you know, on a lot of issues, he is aligned with Trump.
Sure, and I asked Blakeman that when he actually came to New York One and sat down for an interview, because he announced within the wake of Mamdani's general election win that he would create a border wall in Nassau County, essentially blocking the county from New York City. I mean, kind of in name only, but when you're talking about federal immigration enforcement, he tried to, you know, partition the way that his law enforcement is able to assist, and even he deputized some of the Nassau County PD or their local police force in order to handle what's going on with federal immigration. But he also tried to splice it and talk about work programs for those that are here legally. But I want to quickly bring you to some sound that we have from Bruce Blakeman, who spoke with reporters before his speech at the Oneida County Republicans. Let's take a listen.
Elise had to make a decision based on family consideration, and she's really, really a hard worker, and she's a really good representative. And again, I think we'll see, this isn't the last we'll see of Elise Stefanik. Again, I work hard, and I think I have the right message. Basically, people are very, very unhappy with Kathy Hochul's leadership.
So Bruce Blakeman trying to stay on message here and say, it was never about Elise Stefanik. My eyes are trained on Kathy Hochul.
Right. All right, guys, we are going to leave it there. Bernadette Hogan and Dan Rivoli, thank you both so much. It is time now for a break. Coming up, we'll talk about the national implications of Congresswoman Stefanik's decision to drop out of the race. Then after that, Curtis Sliwa will join me to talk about Stefanik's decision and his unsuccessful campaign for mayor. Stay with us. We are back in a minute. Welcome back to Inside City Hall. We return to tonight's top story, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik ending her bid for governor, and she does not plan to seek re-election. And joining me now with some analysis is our own political anchor, Errol Lewis. So Errol, let's talk about this from the national perspective, because Elise Stefanik is something of a national figure, right? She has hitched her wagon to Donald Trump. She was briefly looked like she was going to be the ambassador to the UN, and now she's just completely retreating from politics altogether, which seems kind of remarkable.
Yeah, there's a larger story here. I think the national story is there's a cracking up of the Trump coalition. The MAGA movement is in trouble. They've had a lot of different setbacks. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who if you pair her with Elise Stefanik, you start to see what the trend is. Both of them have publicly complained about the Republican leadership of the House of Representatives and that said that Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, has not given them opportunities to introduce legislation or advance their careers. You have other sort of indications that people are breaking with President Trump, where you have state representatives in Indiana, although they've got extreme pressure they've got personal phone calls from the President of the United States asking them to gerrymander their map so that Republicans could win more seats. And they very publicly said, we're not going to do that. Hoosiers don't like being told what to do. There are problems. Donald Trump is starting to emerge as a lame duck, meaning people know that there's not going to be another term and that there's limits to what he can do to punish you, frankly. Elise Stefanik, I think in that context, is somebody who has sized up the situation, seen that there's going to be rough sledding ahead for Republicans no matter what, and that she doesn't necessarily want to carry that baggage.
Right. I mean, what's remarkable, too, though, is that she clearly had the inside lane to the Republican nomination for governor, although it seemed as though she was going to be facing a primary. And she was the underdog to Kathy Hochul. But, you know, to all of a sudden give that up when, it was going to be a prominent role running for governor next year. And, it was possible she could make up ground. I mean, to just leave that all behind, it's hard to know what was exactly going on behind the scenes driving that decision.
Well, here's a scenario, and I have not talked to anybody in the Stefanik camp, so this is not any kind of prediction. But if she were to decide to become a lobbyist, for example, you're much more valuable as a lobbyist if you retire undefeated, if you've never been beaten in a race, if you know the ropes in Washington, if you're respected and you've walked away from that job. It's much easier to line up clients and basically make yourself a millionaire. Not to say that that's what she's going to do, but she's better positioned to do that than if she ran a bruising race. And I think we know now, we just saw the Siena University poll showing that she was 25 points behind. That's a lot of turf to try and make up in a state that's overwhelmingly Democratic in the first place.
Yeah, that is a lot of turf to make up. Errol, let's talk about a podcast series that you have put together. This is something of an annual tradition, right?
Yes.
Every year you've been putting together a series on an iconic New York politician. You've done John Lindsay, you've done Mario Cuomo, you've done David Dinkins, and now you're doing Bella Abzug, who I don't know if she really gets her proper due. She is an iconic figure in New York political history.
She really is.
Yeah.
She really is.
How did you guys end up settling on Bella Abzug?
Well, you know what happened was, first of all, we hadn't done any women, so we were already thinking, well, that's not so great. But what happened really just throughout the last year, especially when we were working on the John Lindsay documentary, we kept meeting person after person who would drop her name. I mean, like when he was running for mayor, we asked Scott Stringer, gee, how'd you get into politics? And he'd say, I was 14 or 15 handing out flyers for my cousin, Bella Abzug. We would talk to Liz Holtzman, the former congresswoman, about what it was like to be on the impeachment panel that went after Richard Nixon in the 1970s. And she said, well, you have to remember, Bella Abzug really led that fight and introduced a privilege resolution that led to Gerald Ford, the sitting then president of the United States, having to come in and testify about why he pardoned Richard Nixon. So Bella's name just kept coming up again and again, and we started to realize, you know what, all roads lead back to this lady. We need to find out why, and why we didn't know more about it, why her face is not on a postage stamp or really on any meaningful structure or location in New York. There's a little park up in Hudson Yards, although, as one of her former supporters pointed out, it's a project she would have really fought against if she had had an opportunity.
So she was a congresswoman, but only for a few terms.
3 terms.
And, had a career outside of politics where, as an activist, right?
Yes, that was the main thing that I discovered, was that she's born in 1920. And she's an activist starting in the 1940s. She gets a law degree at a time when very few women were even admitted to law school. She graduates from Columbia Law School. She becomes a prominent civil rights activist. She goes down south to try and defend a man who was falsely, I believe, accused of rape in Mississippi and has been sentenced to death. She goes and fights against tremendous odds. Vigilantes are out roaming the streets looking for her. She's hiding in a bathroom where she stays because hotels wouldn't rent her a room, and vigilantes were looking to find and kill her. And she's still, drafting memos that go to the Supreme Court. In the end, they execute this man. This is what she was doing 20 years before she ever ran for office. She runs for office for the first time when she's 50. She's part of the anti-war movement. She starts something called Women Strike for Peace, national organization fighting for nuclear disarmament. They then expand it to fight against the Vietnam War. And of course, she's very, very prominent in the women's movement. And then last but not least, the gay rights movement. Her office, her home really, is across the street from the Stonewall Inn. And she takes in all of these young people and she introduces legislation, if you can believe this, 50 plus years ago, calling for recognition of same-sex civil rights.
Took a while for that to finally catch on.
She was way ahead of her time in multiple dimensions.
And another little piece of trivia, the term Ms., right, replacing Miss and Mrs.
She kept introducing legislation saying that, marital status should not be an issue, and let's just go with Ms. She also introduced and got passed. Any woman watching this broadcast who has a credit card, you should thank Bella Abzug, because until she got the Equal Credit Opportunity Act passed, it was common practice for banks and credit card companies to deny women the right to either open an account or have a credit card unless somebody, their husband, their father, their brother, came in and signed for them. It was absolutely outrageous, and it's hard to believe this went on up until the 1970s, but she got legislation passed to put an end to that practice.
Wow. All right. Fascinating stuff. Errol Lewis, you can watch part 1 of Errol's 2-part podcast. It's titled Bella's Battles, the activist and icon who changed America. That's available now anywhere you get your podcast, and part 2 releases on Monday. So check it out. It is time now for a break. Coming up, after 4 years of big promises, big projects, and many controversies, Mayor Adams' City Hall comes to an end in less than 2 weeks. We will look back at some of the biggest moments in his time as mayor next. Stay with us. Welcome back to Inside City Hall. In his 4 years in City Hall, Eric Adams has definitely left his mark on New York City. Becoming mayor while the city was still fighting a pandemic, Adams would face another major crisis later in his term when tens of thousands of migrants arrived, most of them seeking free shelter from the city. And then overshadowing much of his work were corruption allegations against him and members of his inner circle, allegations that likely prevented him from winning a second term. Our Kelly Mena followed Adams throughout his term in office, and she has more in this report.
I'm an unusual mayor.
It was an unusual administration from the start. From being sworn in as the city was coming out of the pandemic.
I, Eric Adams,
do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
To being the city's second black mayor, Mayor Eric Adams came into City Hall with a lot of style.
When a mayor has swagger, the city has swagger.
Hailed as the public safety mayor, Adams immediately got to work. Within the first 8 months, Adams announced initiatives for tackling subway safety, street homelessness, illegal motorbikes and guns, vehicles with fake plates, and recidivist criminal offenders. Adams also launched his most controversial public safety push, involuntary removals.
It is not acceptable for us to see someone who clearly needs help and walk past.
By year 2, Adams was deep into the migrant crisis that saw a surge of immigrants coming to the city daily. Initially, the mayor was welcoming.
There is a reason that the Statue of Liberty sits in our harbor, because we say welcome those who come here.
But by the fall, the mayor was frustrated by a lack of help from President Biden after having gone multiple times to Washington, D.C. to plead for assistance.
I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City.
Adams closed out his second year under the microscope of federal authorities who were investigating his 2021 campaign fundraising practices.
I would be shocked if someone states that our campaign coordinated in illegal behavior.
The theme of year 3 was fiscal management. Adams started the year by announcing a slew of budget restorations and cancellations to the city's services.
If we had to do the third rounds, it would impact garbage pickup. It would impact services to our older adults. It would impact libraries.
But the good news only lasted so long. In September 2024, Adams became the first sitting mayor in the city's modern history to be indicted.
I will fight these injustices with every ounce of my strength and my spirit. If I'm charged, I know I am innocent.
The indictment was the culmination of weeks of federal activity circling the mayor and his inner circle that included multiple raids and phone seizures of top officials. He was charged with illegally taking gifts from the Turkish government and creating a straw donor scheme that helped his 2021 campaign. By his final year, Adams was fighting for his political future. The case was dismissed by the Trump Justice Department, but not without allegations of a quid pro quo relationship with the president, who took office shortly before Adams was set to go to trial. Adams went into his re-election campaign amid a record low approval rating.
I told all of you in the beginning, this was going to be the most interesting political campaign in the history of the city.
Despite his best efforts, Adams seemed destined to be a one-term mayor. But his administration will be known not just for its challenging moments, but also its unique ones, like the flag raisings for countries across the globe.
I have the flag with me always.
We know New York City is the Zagreb of America.
Or Adams' love-hate relationship with the media.
Keep referring to my appearance.
I can't. You took time to dress up to look nice.
And your personal sick vendetta and the sickness of how you think of over-sexualizing a black man.
And even the odd one-liners.
I mean, we can talk about erectile dysfunction, but not clitoris stimulation. This is a place where every day you wake up, you could experience everything from a plane crashing into our trade center to a person who's celebrating a new business that's open. You know, I wake up in the morning at some time and look at myself and I give myself the finger.
Adams said this to New York One about what comes next.
I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about spending time with family, traveling, and then just enjoying friends.
And our Kelly Mena joins me now to talk more about Adams' legacy. I mean, Kelly, it has been quite a 4-year run, and I'm just thinking about, I mean, there's so much. Like, I'm thinking about some of the things that you couldn't even fit into your piece, like rats, right? The mayor's obsession with rats, which led to trash containerization, which is something that we know Mamdani wants to continue. Also, you know, I'm thinking about the illegal cannabis shops that the mayor cracked down on, and the technology that he, you know, was so obsessed with, including the subway robot that he famously introduced at Times Square and then later kind of quietly retired.
Bobby, 4 years, I mean, you could fill a whole show with everything that the mayor did. It's incredible that we weren't able to fit it all in there, but I think everybody really focuses on the last 2 years because of the indictment and all the federal investigations. But to your point, padlock to protect, that was a big one, even came with its own slogan. Then we talk about all the technology obsession that the mayor had. That was the Night Scope K5 autonomous robot that was at the Times Square subway station. That only lasted a few months. Then do you remember the Evolve technology at also the subway station? That was to detect weapons, knives, and guns. That was also a pilot program. And who could forget the DigiJog that he also rolled out at Times Square, another pilot program. That actually was the same robot that helped when that garage collapsed and ended up finding somebody there. But yes, there's so many things that the mayor has done. It's really been quite a 4 years, I think, for many people. And then I think there's one thing that all of us, I think, got used to, which was those weekly question and answer sessions. That really started after his first year in office, when he felt like he was on this defensive with the media. And so he corralled us into these Tuesday, I guess, meetings with his top officials.
And of course, his penchant for international travel, which we have seen really sort of flower just in these past couple of months, now that his time in office is coming to an end. He may be in Mexico right now as we speak. We're not really sure. And, you know, you alluded to his future. We don't really know exactly what's coming. He has said he wants to write a book, get his PhD, right? Maybe a documentary and some kind of...
Bobby, I think a book, a documentary, a consulting job. Who knows where this man is going to be? But I think it's going to be interesting.
All right. We will see very soon. All right. Coming up, we're going to be joined by former candidate for mayor, Curtis Sliwa. Stay with us. Welcome back to Inside City Hall. As we have been reporting, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik has dropped her bid for governor. She's also announced she won't be seeking re-election to Congress next year. And here to talk about what this means for the Republican Party and much more is the former Republican candidate for mayor. Curtis Sliwa joins us now. Welcome back to the program. Thanks for coming in.
Oh, thank you. And also, you missed my karaoke yesterday at City Hall, room 9 for all the reporters.
Yes, there's some video of that floating around on social media if anybody wants to check it out.
And the great song, because I'm into EDM, electronic dance music, with my wife Nancy, the Chainsmokers, Don't Let Me Down. And how many people did in this election cycle?
Well, Elise Stefanik, who it appeared, had a path to the Republican nomination for governor, dropping out today. I mean, were you surprised by that?
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, to her credit, she was my #1 supporter in the mayoral campaign. She did not vacillate like so many who still are ghosting me and not returning my call. I'll get to you, my little pretties, real soon. But the day after I lost, first call I got was from Elise Stefanik, not a political call, you can tell the voice, personally concerned how you're handling this, Curtis. And I said, nah, today I'm back in the streets, back in the subway. This is what I typically do. But a good 20-minute conversation. And you could see this is a woman of character. And boy, she puts a capital to the L of loyalty. She gave up being our generation's Jean Kirkpatrick. If she had been the U.S. ambassador, if she had not given that up in order to give the majority to the Republicans in the House to support Trump's agenda, you and every media outlet would have been at the United Nations every time she took to the General Assembly to speak on behalf of our country, because she was known to eviscerate people. Look what she did to the chancellors of the Ivy League. Look at what she did to Andrew Cuomo when he came up and he had to give that public testimony before that House committee. She just eviscerated all of her opponents. I would have welcomed, whether it was in a primary, a debate against Bruce Blakeman, or in the general election, what a debate that would have been against Kathy Hochul.
So we are now, a month and a half removed from Election Day and the mayor's race. A little time for reflection, I guess. What do you think about when you think back on the mayor's race? I mean, is there any moments that stick out in your mind, any regrets you have from your mayoral campaign?
No regrets whatsoever, because I stood up to the masters of the universe, as you know. President Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Steve Miller, the billionaires, all the influencers, the insiders who said, oh, you got to drop out. This was starting in June. Remember when Cuomo unexpectedly wasn't going to get a coronation because Zoran and the Zoranistas just beat him with good old-fashioned retail politics. Remember when Cuomo left the Hamptons, he started out with 40% in the primary. March 1st, he announced this officially. Zoran Mamdani is dead last in the Democratic primary, 1%. And then he goes on and beat him by 13%. And then remember, there was the mad dash over to Eric Adams. He was going to be the savior. He would take on Zoran. How long did that last? And I was being told to drop out then. And every day thereafter, since June 5th, I couldn't even get an answer. I couldn't even give an answer to any of the pressing issues during the campaign, because it would always be, well, we hear you're dropping out. We hear you've been offered an opportunity to work in the Trump administration or to leave. And it turned out they were offering me $10 million to drop out. And I say, no mas, no, I'm not dropping out.
Well, and one theory was that you were somehow colluding with Zoran Mamdani in order to sort of give him the election. That's what we heard from some people in the Cuomo camp and from Mayor Eric Adams. I actually want to play you a clip because he talked about that this week in an interview with CNBC. Take a listen.
So my plan wasn't flawed. Right. It was flawed when you had people like Curtis Sliwa, who I still believe was working for the Zoran campaign.
You think he was real?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Based on what?
The number of things. He never raised money like this before when he ran for office. So where was all those contributions coming from? Number two, he clearly knew he had no chance of winning. He clearly knew that, but he stayed in anyway. And then do an analysis of who he attacked. He didn't attack Zoran. He attacked Andrew Cuomo. He attacked Eric Adams. So his whole strategy, you need to question and look at. And I think history is going to reveal his role.
What's your response to that?
Well, what a bunch of sore losers, Cuomo and Eric Adams. They can't accept the fact that they lost. Zoran Mamdani beat them. And more importantly, now they want to blame me for their losses, their setbacks. By the way, did he do that via satellite link up from Acapulco? Where is he today? It's like Matt Lauer. What country is Eric Adams in today at taxpayers' expense? And this guy should have been going for re-election. Generally an incumbent Democrat, very easy. He would have run against me a second time, would have been very difficult. But because of his failures, because of the fact that Donald Trump rescued him from becoming a cellmate from Gold Bar's Bobby Menendez in federal prison because he was guilty of political corruption, and now he's saying, I didn't do anything wrong. Just like Cuomo, I didn't do anything wrong. Just like Trump, I don't do anything wrong. They never apologize. That's why I say they are products of the masters of the universe, and I'm not. If I mess up, I fess up. I apologize. But can you believe this? He's running this line. And by the way, if I was steering in the direction of Zoran Mamdani, hey, Zoran, Zoranistas, I didn't say I wouldn't come to the swearing in, right, at City Hall. Where's my invitation, right? Oh, Adams, I don't know if I'll go. Cuomo, what did he slide in under his rock out there in the Hamptons with his billionaire friends? And by the way, I find out that Zoran's wife, the incoming first lady, Rama, I believe her first name is, she's bringing a cat into Gracie Mansion. Zoran then said in an interview, I'm allergic to cats, but I'll take the shots. All the animal rescue groups would say, this is wonderful, which it is. I hope it's a rescue cat. Me, I was getting attacked over them. You cat hoarder. Trump was saying, oh, this will destroy Gracie Mansion. Now he's best friends with Zoran Mamdani after that meeting. Oh, Zoran, call me a fascist anytime you like.
What do you think of what you've seen so far from Mamdani these last, 6-8 weeks as far as the transition and some of the people he's appointing to top jobs?
He is given an opportunity now to put into an administration that he got voted. He got a mandate. He got over 50% of the votes. But I see that Eric Adams and his administration have thrown every monkey wrench into the process to make a very difficult job that much more difficult. He needs a grace period like every mayor needs, and they all make mistakes right out of the box. I don't know of any mayor that hasn't made mistakes, and he'll make mistakes. But let's face it, if Zoran Mamdani and the administration does well, New York City does well, we all do well, New York State does well, America does well. So let's hope that he can deliver. I'm looking at things the way they are. I don't think he can, but I certainly am not going to be there to badmouth him and create all these obstacles and really sabotage along the way that Eric Adams, by the way, what country is he in today?
We're not sure.
Okay. Sabotaging his effort to get started right out of the box.
Yeah. All right, Curtis, just about 30 seconds left. But let me ask you about your future, because you gave up a lucrative radio gig at WABC to run for mayor. You swore you will not ever return to WABC. So what's next for you?
Well, WABC always stood for Always Broadcasting Curtis for 35 years. And then all of a sudden it became Always Blaming Curtis for Zoran Mamdani. Then it became Always Broadcasting Cuomo. And now it's always bashing Curtis. So I've said, and I'm a man of my word, if nothing else, I will never go to WABC again. In fact, you can hear me on WOR starting Monday as I substitute for Mark Simone, who's their best talk show host. And we'll see what happens. But one thing for sure, I will never be at WABC. You'll see me in the streets and the subways every day. I would rather be in a men's shelter living there or riding on the number 4 train with nowhere to go than to ever be at WABC again, because they started this whole campaign. Curtis, you must drop out. How did that work out, WABC, huh?
Well, you did stick to your word that you were going to stick it out in the mayoral campaign. You never dropped out despite those calls for you to do that. So, Curtis Sliwa, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Can you give me an invitation to the inauguration? Because all of a sudden I'm a person of no consequence.
He says it's going to be open to all New Yorkers. So I think you'll be welcome. All right, we have got to take a break. Coming up, I'll talk more about Elise Stefanik's decision not to run when I am joined by 2 top reporters in our Friday Reporters Roundtable. Stay with us.
I had high hopes for Eric Adams.
History is showing the totality of what an individual does. There will always be haters, and our haters will be our waiters.
My name is Kat DaCosta, and I am honored to be joining the Mamdani administration as director of the Mayor's Office of Appointments.
I was not aware of these posts, and I would not have hired had I been aware. These comments were reprehensible. She expressed a deep sense of remorse.
The affordability agenda is our mandate.
It is an aggressive agenda. We do believe that tax increases are a key part of that.
When you can't afford a home, you can't fathom a life of dignity and security.
African Americans or African diasporic people who have left New York City, many of them are young folks who just can't afford to live in our cities at this time.
Budgets are more than just numbers on a spreadsheet, lines on a graph, or statistics on a chart.
And our country is back, stronger than ever before.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Those were some of the week's top political stories. We're going to talk about those, as well as Congresswoman Elise Stefanik dropping her bid for governor. And joining me now are 2 top journalists in our Friday Reporters Roundtable. Chris Sommerfeld is a City Hall reporter for the New York Daily News, and Rebecca Lewis is the senior state politics reporter at City and State New York. Thank you both for being here. So the Friday afternoon bombshell was Elise Stefanik dropping out of the governor's race. And obviously, Rebecca, you cover state politics. This was a surprise, right? Even to those of you who have been following this closely.
Yeah, when the rumors started getting out there, the sense was sort of like, this can't be true. Stefanik had been leading in the polls, for the primary at least. She'd been leading in the polls in the GOP primary. She had secured 75% of the county leaders that would get her the nomination, almost 1% more outright. Without a primary. She had the support from the state GOP chair, and she just dropped out. She said it was to spend more time with her son, but if there's anything more to that, a lot of people are kind of in the dark right now.
Right. I mean, this is sort of reverberating across New York politics, especially because the governor's race was really going to be the main event next year. That's really the only campaign that people were going to be watching here in New York. And now it actually makes things maybe a little bit harder for Kathy Hochul. She was counting on, this bruising Republican primary where Blakeman and Stefanik were going to sort of beat each other up a little bit.
It also leads you to almost speculate, like what Rebecca just said. Is there something else going on here behind the scenes? Might Stefanik have gotten some sort of deal with Trump, or maybe she has another appointment lined up? I don't know. I'm just speculating here, but it almost seems like there might be something else going on here from the Republican side in order to actually try to maximize their chances against Kathy Hochul.
And what is the talk from the Hochul camp? I mean, is that an accurate read that this is maybe not the best for them, or would they rather face Blakeman? Like, I don't know from her perspective, what's going on.
They've been a victory lap. I mean, they were hoping for a bruising primary, but Elise Stefanik dropping out, they see that as good news. They think they in the statement from her campaign spokesperson was something like 1 down, 1 to go. They are kind of trolling her a little bit on social media. They are happy campers.
Well, and Hochul is up on Blakeman like 25 points in that poll that came out earlier this week. So presumably he's the candidate that she would rather be facing.
Yeah, although this is still very early for Blakeman. He comes from Long Island, and that is a very important area for votes and an area of the state that Hochul really underperformed in 2022. So, there's good reason to take him very seriously, and now that there isn't competition, he could pose a real threat to her if he starts really building up his momentum and coalescing the support that had originally gone to Stefanik.
Let's talk about Zohran Mamdani. The big story today before the Stefanik breaking news was this thing that happened with his appointee, Kat DaCosta, who was found to have made some tweets many, many years ago that were widely viewed as anti-Semitic. I mean, this was not the rollout that Team Mamdani was expecting, and things had been going relatively smoothly, I think, up until now during this transition period.
Absolutely, and I think, too, the context here, right? He hasn't made an appointment in a month, and now finally he's making an appointment, and this happens. It's embarrassing. It's a bad look. And honestly, I think it raises a lot of questions about how the vetting works over on the Mamdani transition team. How was this not discovered? How did it take the Anti-Defamation League to unearth this? You would think that a sufficient vetting team would come across something like this. So it's definitely a hiccup for Mamdani, and like you said, what has otherwise been a pretty smooth transition.
And I mean, obviously making things worse is the fact that she was going to be the director of appointments, who is responsible for doing this very thing, right, vetting candidates. And obviously the fact that this was offensive to Jews. And Mamdani has been battling this idea that he's been promoting anti-Semitism for months. So kind of a worst case scenario for him.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of imagine if this was going to happen, this happening in a worse way. It's very unusual only just because she has been in government for some time. She had worked for the previous administration, and this hadn't come up before. But Mamdani and his team, they need to know. They must understand that every single person that they are going to tap is going to be put under scrutiny like no one ever before. So everyone that they appoint is going to need to be squeaky clean. And if nothing else, this should be a learning experience for them.
Chris, on a transition to Mayor Adams, who in his last couple of weeks in office has been making some interesting choices on his way out. He had the speech this week where he put some things in a time capsule, and then he jetted off to Mexico. I think it was you that asked him about his trip and what he was going to be spending his time in Mexico doing, which he didn't take a liking to.
He said that was none of my business what he's doing on this trip. So who knows what he's doing? Apparently, taxpayer dollars are not being used on his own trip, but you know, as we all know, the mayor travels with a security detail. So there's taxpayer dollars being spent in one way or another. But it's really unclear what he's doing there. It appears he's just on vacation, kind of taking, I guess, the last couple of weeks of his administration off.
And now that it's the last couple of weeks of the Adams administration, I wonder if you want to reflect on your relationship with Mayor Adams. I'm not sure he had a more contentious relationship with any reporter in City Hall than you. He even mentioned you at that press conference the other day when he was talking about his achievements in office. Are you going to miss your time with Eric Adams?
He did mention me, and he, I guess, said that if people want to leak information, they should go to me, which I appreciate. I think that's a great idea. So if anyone is listening and want to leak some information, please come to me. But it's been a wild ride, and I don't think I'm the only reporter who would say that. Covering Eric Adams has been challenging, contentious, very fun at times, but it's been a strange episode.
And by the way, Rebecca, on his way out the door, the mayor has been putting up some roadblocks to Zoran Mamdani, including stacking the rent guidelines board with members who could potentially block his plans for a rent freeze, which is a big deal. I mean, this is one of his signature initiatives, and this is not the only case where Adams is throwing up roadblocks.
Yeah, it's I feel like he's just sort of having fun now. He wants to make things as difficult as possible for Mamdani when he comes in. He's doing everything he can, and so I feel like he's just sort of closing the door behind him, and I'll just say not very gracious, I suppose, in the transfer of power, trying to put up these roadblocks. But if I was Eric Adams, I feel like I might be a little upset by all this too.
He is one of a kind, that's for sure. All right, Rebecca Lewis, Chris Sommerfeld, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. And that is going to do it for tonight's show. We will be off for the holiday season and return in the new year. Be sure to join us on January 1st for special coverage of Inauguration Day and a special episode that evening of Inside City Hall. For now, stay tuned for another episode of our weekly national political show, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, at 9 o'clock tonight. And to all our viewers, we wish you a happy and healthy holiday. Thanks for watching tonight and have a great weekend. We will see you in the new year on Inside City Hall.